name is Daniel McCord. I'm going to talk about the presidency of FDR. At the end of the 1920s, the United States experienced the greatest economic collapse in the history of the country. By the end of World War II, it was the world's greatest economic superpower. President for much of this time was FDR, who attempted to mediate the effects of the Great Depression through legislation and public works projects. This is relevant to you because as we go on through our lives, we'll certainly experience more economic crises, and it's good to understand the legislation that governs what happens during these crises and how it will affect you. I've done quite a bit of research on this topic. Last semester, I took a U.S. history course here at Citrus, and my final project was on the same topic. I also did quite a bit of research for this specific speech. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the presidential terms of FDR, the crises he faced, and how he dealt with those crises. I'll start by talking about his first term and the New Deal. I'll then talk about his second term, the problems he faced there, and then I'll move on and talk about his third term and World War II. Moving on to my first point, Roosevelt's first term. According to Price Fishback, a economics professor and historian in the Journal of Economic Literature, FDR took over a country that was in financial ruin and attempted to mediate this through public works projects and legislation. This spat of legislation is known as the New Deal. Some of these acts were meant to stabilize agriculture, some meant to increase jobs through public works, and some meant to regain the trust of the people in the banks. Some of the acts meant to stabilize agriculture were the Agricultural Adjustment Act and the Electric Home and Farm Act, or Authority, Both of these intended to stabilize agricultural prices and increase farm wages. Public Works Acts included the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Tennessee Valley Authority, and the Public Works Administration. These all created public works projects, which both funneled money into the economy and created jobs. And some of the economic stabilization acts included the Emergency Banking Relief Act, the FDIC, and the Glass-Steagall Act. Again, these were all meant to reestablish trust in the banks. Moving on to Roosevelt's second term. According to Lawrence Summers in the Washington Post, this was Roosevelt's least successful term. This was because he had lost some trust in the American people. This was due to his attempted court packing, where he attempted to increase the number of Superior Court judges to have more judges who would rule in his favor. He also experienced a recession in 1937 at the beginning of his second term, and he had a largely conservative Congress which opposed many of his views. He had a tough time passing legislation during this term. However, some of the key pieces of legislation he was able to pass included the Housing Act of 1937, which created millions of homes, and the Fair Labor and Standards Act, which both established a federal minimum wage and increased labor conditions. Moving on to Roosevelt's third term. This term was focused largely on World War II. Before the U.S. entered the war, we switched to a wartime economy where we moved to produce a large quantity of war goods for the Allied powers, and then eventually we joined the war. This was increased. This both increased government spending into the economy and created more jobs. According to the American Yawp, an online collaborative textbook, the economy, which at the beginning of the Great Depression was experiencing a 25% unemployment rate, at the end of World War II had so many positions it couldn't even fill them all. Today I told you about the presidential terms of FDR, the problems he faced and how he faced them. I started talking about his first presidency and the New Deal. I then moved on talking about his second presidency and the challenges he faced then. And I then finished talking about his third presidency and World War II. I will leave you with a quote from Roosevelt's second inaugural address, which I believe sums up his thinking throughout his three presidential terms. He actually served four, however, the fourth was cut short. And that is this: the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much, it is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Thank you.